If you or someone you know is starting college soon, you might want to listen up, because the big beautiful bill that passed the House of Representatives the other day may have something to say about where you're going to college and even what your major is. I'm Brian, I make videos about civics and law, and today we are going to break down part of Title III of the big beautiful bill, specifically sections 30002 and 472A. Now there's plenty more in this bill and even in this title to look at, but there's just too much to do in one video. So we're just going to break down this one part for now, which focuses on how the government calculates the amount of student loans that you can take out. And the new system is a bit of a doozy. Before I get started, I have to thank Sari, Tracy, and again, Shelly. I cannot keep making these videos without your support, and I really appreciate it. If anybody else wants to support me, check out my Linktree on my profile. If you download a copy of the big beautiful bill, it's about 1,000 pages, and I am on page 152, I think. The other two things you're going to want to download to follow along are 20 USC 1087 KK and 20 USC 1087, I think it's LL, it might be II, which is where we're going to start. Right now, before the government decides how much you can take out in student loans, it has to figure out how much your school is going to cost. So the first question they ask is, what is the cost of attendance for this particular student? And cost of attendance is defined right here. Now, the cost of attendance section has a lot of different parts to it. They want to start with the biggest number possible. How much could it possibly cost you to go to school? And then whittle that number down. This isn't how much they're going to give you, this is how much it might cost you to go to school. So, it includes things like tuition and fees for your major at your school. Basically, they just call your school and say, hey, this kid's majoring in chemical engineering. How much is it going to cost for him to go to school for a year? That's that number. How much will the books and equipment cost for somebody in that major? Does an engineering student have to buy more stuff? And then all the other stuff you'd expect. Cost of transportation, living expenses, food. Are they going to live in a dorm? How much is that going to cost? All that kind of stuff. And then they add this all up, come up with a number, and that's the cost of attendance. Easy enough, right? Now let's look at 1087 KK, which determines the amount of need. How much is this person going to need to go to school this year? Here's how we figure it out. To figure out how much the student is going to need this year, we take their cost of attendance, subtract something called the Student Aid Index. Now the Student Aid Index is a mathematical calculation of how much money the student has to put in on their own behalf. And finally, we subtract any other financial aid. So, the total cost of school minus the amount the student's going to pay themselves minus any other scholarships or anything they're getting gives us a dollar amount, which is the amount of need. Now let's take a look at the big beautiful bill. Section 3002 amends 1087 KK. First, it says for the 2025-2026 school year, nothing changes. But for 2026-2027, which I'm sure coincidentally is the first school year when there will be a different group of people in the House of Representatives, the amount of need will be calculated differently. Let's see what they do. For 2026-2027, the cost of attendance has been changed to the median cost of college of the program of study, minus the Student Aid Index, minus other financial aid. So these two haven't changed. Just the top number has changed. And in 472A, they will define median cost. So let's talk about it. Remember before we tried to come up with what the actual cost was. With the new system, you're going to tell them what your major is. The government is going to determine, based on your major, what the median cost is across the entire country for a student to study a particular thing. Now, for those of you who don't know what a median is, let me run through this real quick. Let's say there are 7 chemical engineering programs in the country. 3 of them cost $30,000 a year. 1 of them costs $40,000 a year. 3 of them cost $50,000 a year. The median chooses the middle one, which in this case makes some sense because it's also the average. But the median is not always the average. The median is always the one in the middle. If there were 5 schools that cost $30,000 and 2 that cost $50,000, the median would be 30 because it's the one in the middle. But you can sort of see the problem here. Even if all but 1 are 30, the median is still 30. Now in this particular situation, there are potential benefits or problems. Let's say that this one school is charging 50 and everyone else is charging 30 because this one school is just overcharging. Only providing students across the country enough to go to school at a $30,000 a year school may pressure this last school to lower their prices. But what if this last school costs $50,000 because their facilities are so good? What if the students coming out of this school's chemical engineering program are just miles above everyone else's? If we force them to drop their tuition down to line up with these others, are we going to end up hurting our own students? Are we going to end up hurting our own chemical facilities? Are we going to end up hurting our own economy? What happens if the median cost of art history majors across the country is only $20,000 because art history majors are just cheaper? Will better, more expensive chemical engineering programs have to close down, focusing instead on art history programs? Will all chemical engineering programs across the country close down? What if, due to a glitch in the median system, the median of art history is $70,000, and you can go to one of these schools and get $70,000 a year in aid? Will students flock to art history programs, shuttering chemical engineering programs across the country, where the medium system shuts students out of most programs? So there's an arbitrariness to this system that's a little bit confusing, but particularly when we actually have the real numbers now, why you would switch to something that attempts to average and could have massive reverberations across the economy of our education system when we're already concerned about where people are ending up. And of course, the final problem is that these top-tier schools, which have only recently become more merit-based, places where you can go if you really are at the top of your game, even if you don't have the money to go there, will no longer be merit-based, but only based on whether or not you can afford them. So there's a lot of policy problems with this, even though there's a potential to suppress the cost of school overall. It seems unlikely to actually do that. The market response is more likely to be something random that we do not see coming than what I think they're hoping for. Again though, this is just one little change in this bill. You can look it up for yourself. The rest of this section does some other pretty major things. Whereas before, this number would be divided between a few grants, subsidized loans, and unsubsidized loans, which meant you wouldn't have to pay interest on some of your loans. Subsidized loans have been deleted completely from this new bill. There will be no more subsidized loans. You will have to pay interest on any student loans you take out. So not only will loans be harder to get, they will cost more money. But go ahead and pull this up yourself, have a look at it. Again, I want to thank the people who've been supporting me. I really can't do this without support. Please check out my link tree off of my profile. Make sure to comment. Let me know where you are in the student loan process. And take a look at this bill yourself. Tell me if anything sticks out to you, because there's a lot in here. Thanks very much, guys. Hope you had a good Memorial Day.